What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. This is going to be a short deck profile on Green's Charizard and also a tournament report from Elite Cup this past weekend that I played this list to. So this is based off of the first place list from the special event last weekend, which you can find the results from on limitlesstcg.com. I just cut the 4th reset stamp for one Judge. I like the utility of Judge since we're playing 2 Judge Whistle, and if you don't want to just draw a card and you don't have a supporter for turn, this acts as a Versus Seeker for Judge. So that's a pretty cool interaction that you might get off of some games, and depending on your testing, if Judge is useful or not, maybe you take it out for the 4th stamp or another card. Overall, I don't think I would want to play this deck without the Judge Whistles, because my only issue with Green's Charizard is the lack of draw power, or just the lack of it's hard to stay in the game if you start the game without a supporter. So Judge Whistle, the 2 Judge Whistles and the 4 Acro Bikes, and even sometimes you use custom catchers for draw in dire situations, it really gives you better outs to being able to play the game. I really like Green's Charizard because I feel like if you start with a supporter and like a decent hand, you can win most games by playing really well and making skillful decisions. This was my second pick for AC Regionals last week, or 2 weeks ago now. I played Abilities-Art instead, so I just went to Green's Charizard for Cups, and I ended up getting second place with this list. So just to run through my tournament real quick, it is Elite Cup, so the Swiss rounds don't really matter too much in my opinion, if you're looking at this for like to base my results off of playing this deck for the future, but the top 8 matches were all pretty close. So yeah, best of 1, 6 Swiss rounds, top 8, 53 Masters. Round 1 I played against a Malamar and they drew pass. Round 2 I played against a Whimsicott GX. And I played 4 Power Plants, plus she misplayed a bunch, so it was really easy. Round 3, I played against Rahul Reddy, and he was piloting a Jirachi Mew 3 deck. And this is a really close matchup. If I'm playing against someone who isn't going to play perfectly, I feel pretty good about it. But Rahul played flawlessly. I don't think I noticed anything that could have been done better on his side. He got turn 1 Welder and turn 2 Welder, which forced me to gust up the Turtonator that he weldered onto, because if he knocked out my Charizard with a single prize, there's no coming back there, because I'll just return on a single prizer and then he can just potentially win the game next turn. So I did have to gust up his Turtonator that had 2 energy, while his Mew 3 had, I believe it was 2 fire and a psychic, and then the Turtonator had 2 fire. So what really messed me up is early on, I think on my second turn, I Acro Biked and needed a supporter, and I saw greens and custom catcher, and I had to discard the custom catcher because I needed a supporter. If I did not have to discard a custom catcher, I would have actually been looking pretty good, because that turn, or the turn after, early on in the game, I gusted up the Turtonator and knocked it out with a Baby Volk. And on the following turn after he Turbo Striked the Volk, I had a greens in my hand. So if I had 2 more catchers in deck, I would have been able to double blaze 300 on his benched Mewtwo that was powered up. And it would have been looking pretty good for me from there. But I was not able to do that since I did have to ditch a custom catcher with Bike. And also, he didn't play down his Marshadow reset hole early. He didn't really play it down until he needed to. So whenever I planted or stamp planted, it didn't stick. There was one turn where like I knew the game was over because I played plant, and he replaced the plant with a stadium, played down reset hole, and got another stadium off of his Stellar Wish. So even if I stamp planted him, he had reset hole on the bench. If I knocked out reset hole, he had a stadium in hand. And even if I was able to knock out reset hole, stamp, and plant all in the same turn, which was not possible because I had no gust effects left, he also had Jirachi with a board on it. So he could have very well just gotten another supporter, another stadium anyway, to get out of the plant lock. So he ended up winning. Round 4, I got paired against my mom playing Blacephalon. I asked her if she wanted to ID, but she said she would rather, one of us win and then only have to win one more and then ID into cut. And I know the Blacephalon matchup really well, so Stamp Plant usually gets me there. So I won round 4 versus Blounds. Then I played against Chris Toporco from someone's PC, also piloting Blounds. And I believe, I know he and my mom played in the round after this, and they talked about their lists a little after the match, I believe. So, and their list ended up being like 2 cards off or something. So I was pretty ready for the Blounds matchup versus him. Stamp Plant worked really well. He didn't pop off with B strings. And also he was playing 2 Stamp, which did throw me for a loop a bit. But off of the second Stamp, I drew a Pokégear off my top deck, and then I was fine because I hit a Greens or a Welder. I hit some supporter. But yeah, Stamp Plant works really well versus Blounds since they kind of rely on Naganadel GX for drawing. And I think he went through 4 stadiums early and then broke out the 5th stadium, which I wasn't expecting. He was playing 3 Ultra Space, a Heat Factory, and a Labs. But yeah, we ended up getting there. He wasn't able to finish me off because he didn't get enough B strings on his B string turn. If he got one more B string, he would have actually been 1 energy off still from winning the game, so he would have had to get either 2 B strings or a B string and an attachment for the turn that he B stringed. He attached a Psychic Energy on that turn, not a Fire, so that also messed up the math a little. Or he would have needed a Beast Energy. Either way, I won, and then round 6, I ID'd with Matt S. playing Guardian. In top 8, I played against Anthony Del Gercio, and he was playing Mark Lutz's Marshchamp Tina Chomp Mismagius deck. You can find that on Limitless TCG. It's a Greens deck that relies on Mismagius giving your opponent prizes, then stamping them. GG End from Tina Chomp's really scary against Greensard because they can just get rid of your one big Pokemon. Game 1, he dead drew really badly, so I won pretty quickly. In Game 2, he was able to stamp me to 5 cards early and then 1 card late. He popped a Mismagius, stamped me, and then I knocked out a tag team, and then he popped a Mismagius, putting me down to 1 prize and stamped me. And then he also GG ended my only Reshi that was set up, so then he just kind of went through my board from there. Game 3, the stamps didn't really stick on me. I got a Greens or a Welder, I think 1 out of 3 or 2 out of 3 times he stamped me. He also used 2 or 3 of his stamps really early, so he wasn't able to stamp me at 1 prize, I don't think. But my stamp stuck really well on him, kind of like his did on me game 2, and I was able to just knock out a Tina Chomp, knock out a Marshchamp, and win. Top 4, I played against Brian Bear, playing Pikarom, Cynthia, 3 stamps. Game 1 was really, really close, although I never drew a prize card. I had Flare Strike 230 set up on a Pikarom, and if I ever got a Greens, I would have been able to search for Catcher and Shrine, and then bring up the other Pikarom and knock it out, and then take all 6 prizes in 1 turn off of the Flare Strike Shrine. But I never ended up hitting it. I just kept setting up Volks and hoping my top deck was a Greens pretty much at that point. So he ended up winning game 1. Game 2, he played 1 supporter, and I played more than 1 supporter. I had a better start than him basically game 2. And so that one I won pretty handedly. Game 3, I believe I got an early knockout on his Raichu, on his Alolan Raichu tag team, but I played against another Pikarom in top 2, so the games might be kind of blurring together. But I did win game 3 versus Brian. Our stamps back and forth are really influential in the matchup, just who draws out of them better, and if my plant sticks so we can't use the Dene. Top 2 finals, I played against Luke Smith. He's number 4 in NA right now for CP. He's a first-year master, and he's killing it. He was playing Pika Judge, which in my opinion is the inferior Pikarom deck, but potentially slightly better versus Greens. depending on if they get the judge early. Game 1 was close, but he ended up pulling it out. Game 2, I plant locked him, and then he just drew pass for a while. He had a Dedenne in hand and custom catchered for 2 cards and drew 2 more Dedennes at one point. So like, and he just basically needed to draw a stadium and did not. So my plant just stuck and I went through his board. Game 3, I got turn 2 double custom catcher, double blaze on his Raichu with 3 energy. So knocked it out. I thought I had the game at that point, and then he dropped triple Electro Power Tag Bolt on my Reshi, and also judged me. So from there, I needed to top deck out with a supporter, and never did, and he ended up winning game 3. Games 1 and 3 were really close. Game 2, I just kind of plant locked them. But yeah, so that's the deck. I don't think I would play it without the Judge Whistles, but without the Great Potions, this takes a bad Mally matchup, or at least not favored as much as it would with the Great Pots. Without mixed herbs, I might like one mixed herb just for a lone Raichu, or even if they decide to Tingly return you in the Pikarom matchup. Maybe against Blounds if you need to get out of confusion and you can't double switch or something like that. So one mixed herb might have merit. If you are planning on playing against Malamar, you probably want 2 to 3 Great Pot. And the cuts for the Great Pots are probably Judge, Stealthy Hood, and then maybe the 3rd plant, or cutting the Whistles. I'm sorry, going down to 3 plants, and then possibly the Whistles. The Whistles were, they replaced Great Pots in my list at least, but I think they're really good for consistency, and when you just need to hit 1 more greens to win the game, or 1 more catcher to win the game, or something like that. I think this deck's really good going into Knoxville, depending on the skill of the Mewtwo players you come up against, and the popularity you expect Mewtwo to have. Like I said, that matchup is close in the sense that both players have to play really well, but I think if the Mewtwo player plays just as well as Greens, a lot of times they're going to come out on top. And if the Mewtwo player hits like 2 Welders in a row and also plays well, I don't think Greens can win. So that's my deck profile on my current Greens list and my tournament report for the 2nd place cup. I think I'm over 100 CP now. I haven't really been keeping track of the CP since I'm not going for stipends or anything. Just been competing, trying to have some fun. And I'm focusing a little more on creating content this year, but obviously I'm still going for a Worlds invite. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe, comment, and like if you enjoyed it. And I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.